What's up, it's Cinema Shogun here, and I always used to think that if there was ever a major attack on America, that it would be in like New York or in LA, because those are like some of the first places you think of when you think of America. Maybe not so much these days, especially for Americans actually living in America. But from the outside looking in, LA and New York, those are still like the number one hotspots, the places people think of when they think of America. Not to mention, they are the most heavily populated areas in America, and they're kind of like the Mecca, if you will, or at least they used to be. But I no longer think this way, because the way life has been going, the way society has been changing, I look at New York and I look at LA and I just think, why would our enemies want to attack these areas? I mean, New York and LA, they're already doing a good enough job at destroying themselves as is. And when you take a step back, when you really boil it down to the bone, what does LA and New York have to offer us? LA, yeah, they're the hub of entertainment, but they've already destroyed the entertainment industry themselves. No one cares about half of these movies and TV shows and streaming services anymore. Hollywood has destroyed itself. So why would a foreign enemy want to attack LA or California? And then when I look at New York City, I mean, New York City used to, in many ways, shape how the rest of the country acted. They were the trend setters. Everyone would look to New York for the latest fashion or music or what have you. Nowadays, no one gives a damn about New York. What do they really have to offer the rest of the country, other than videos of people getting attacked on the subway? Now, I'm not here to, don't get me wrong, I have nothing against like random people in New York or in LA, so if you live there, I have no issue with you. I feel bad that you have to traverse through so much homelessness and violence just to live your regular everyday lives. But I say all of this basically to say that I no longer think that California or New York would be the top targets if there was an attack on our country. I would say keep your eyes on Texas. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, keep your eyes on Texas. Earlier this week, I reported to you all that they are conducting special training exercises for a possible nuclear attack on Houston, Texas. Now, that is alarming in itself, especially when you consider everything else that is going on in the world. I find it weird that in the same week they're doing these nuclear drills in Houston, all of a sudden the Kremlin was attacked by drones. A lot of weird stuff going on there. But, ladies and gentlemen, that's not all. I've been noticing some really weird like military movements out in Texas, and I know that they're conducting these nuclear drills, so I don't want to make too much of it. But yesterday, there was actually a major cyber attack in Dallas, Texas. Now, we talk about World War III and various things like that on this channel all the time. I've told you all countless times that the future of war is going to be much different than the wars we fought in the past. That's why I always tell you, I believe we're already in World War III. It's just being fought in ways that we don't necessarily think of, like cyber attacks. And I find it weird that the World Economic Forum, they were just warning the world about cyber attacks that they will undoubtedly be behind. But they just had a meeting not too long ago about how the next big, Schwab and all of them, the next big threat is cyber attacks. And now we have cyber attacks in Dallas the same week that they're conducting nuclear drills in Houston. Now, these cyber attacks disrupted life in Dallas as you know it. The library went down, the public libraries went down. I'm sure a lot of people don't care about that. But also, it affected the police department, law enforcement. It affected the dispatchers. They weren't able to communicate. They started having to write down things on paper. They were getting 911 calls, and they were having to write it down on paper like the olden days. And it shows you just how quickly things could change because we all rely on the internet. We rely on the internet for far too many things, myself included. A lot of times I'm like, why should I do this math when I have a calculator right here? Is this how I spell the word correctly? Who cares? Because we have autocorrect on our phones. There's so many little things in life that we no longer have to worry about due to the internet, but we're not prepared for if it just shuts off. If everything just shuts off, what will people do? Yesterday, Dallas got to experience a small fraction of a taste of what that would be like, and it was not good. A lot of the first responders, the 911 operators, they did not know what to do. It went into full panic mode. They couldn't properly communicate with the officers on the street. They had to manually take down all of this information, which is something they've never had to do in their career. They probably never even had to do it while training for the job. Everything's on computers. So it crippled, and this wasn't a big cyber attack by any means, but it crippled some of the, when I say infrastructure, I mean like it crippled some of the ways that Dallas stays running. It crippled some of the ways that your city stays running as is. Just like that. And you know, Texas, the reason why I believe Texas may be one of the main targets is because here in America, we now look at Texas almost as the beacon of freedom. You know what I mean? We look at Texas as like the wild, wild west still, you know, in some ways. I would assume there's a lot of weaponry out there. It's the standout from America. No longer is it New York and California, it's places like Texas and Florida. And you see, Texas, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's connected to its own power grid. So it makes them it's hard, all right. They're connected to their own power grid, so in many ways they feel as if that protects them from, okay, if anything happens in the rest of America, we're going to be able to stand on our own two legs. And if some shady stuff happens in America, we're not going to have to deal with it. But at the same time, I don't think their power grid is as strong as the rest of America. And I think this makes them, you know, more susceptible to cyber attacks and things of that nature. So it looks to me like Texas may be the number one target for our enemies. And, you know, I'm not just saying that out of nowhere. I'm not just pulling this information out the side of my neck and like, yeah, Texas is the number one target. You have to pay attention to how things are going. And the fact that they aren't conducting nuclear tests or, you know, nuclear training in New York and all. They're doing it in Texas for a reason. Cyber attacks are targeting Texas for a reason. And as I always tell you on this channel, you have to pay attention to the timing of things. Randomly, the cyber attack is happening as nuclear drills are being carried out in Houston. It's like Texas has a lot going on right now, and they're being tight-lipped about this situation and how they were affected by this situation. They're trying to play things off like, hey, everything's smooth, everything's cool, but in reality, I think it's worse than what they're letting us know. Now, it's important to note that for the most part, everything is back to normal. I know that court systems have been messed up, so if you had a court date, you know, today or something, maybe it will be postponed. So there are some things that are still effective, but for the most part, it's back to normal. Now, they have named a suspect in all of this. They say it's a group called Royal, or the Royals, I believe. That's what they're called. This is not the first time they've conducted cyber attacks on America. They often ask for ransom, like money in Bitcoin and exchanges like that, in order for them to basically call off the attack. So there's a lot going on right now, but my main issue is this, because I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a tech wizard, because I'm not. So there are people out there that understand the situation better than I do, but what bothers me is that stuff like this, it doesn't really get out there. No one's talking about it. It doesn't make major news. And that's what's so frustrating to me as someone who, covers the news on a daily basis on various YouTube channels. I look at the main news stories in America right now, and then I compare them to the type of news stories I cover, and it's just like, wow. There will be news stories about, oh, look, this celebrity wore this dress to the Oscars. And it will be the most talked about news story. Meanwhile, we'll have places like Dallas, Texas, who have been crippled by cyber attacks, and no one knows and no one cares. So we live in a world where BS news is propped up to the top, while real news is reported on. It's important to say, a lot of this news out there, a lot of this weird stuff going on, it's reported on, it's put out there, but it's buried under so much stuff that they know that you're never going to take the time to look into it. So I believe this cyber attack should be one of the number one stories in America. I also believe the fact that they're conducting nuclear missile tests, or they're conducting training exercises for a response to a nuclear attack in Houston. I think that's something that we should be talking about more, but we're not. Everyone's focused on everything else. And I don't blame them, because in many ways, we're all being attacked daily. From the moment you wake up in the morning, you're hit with so much information. And a lot of that information is totally useless. But it's there to basically to keep you busy, to keep you preoccupied, so you never dig deeper. Because I assure you, after you dig a little bit deeper through the nonsense news of the day, you start seeing a lot of weird stuff going on. A lot of the weird stuff that I report on this channel that some people think, literally to this day, a lot of people think that my recent videos were conspiracy videos. When I talk about robot dogs and cyber attacks and the future of AI. But all of this stuff is legit official information that you can go out there and gather for yourself if you choose to take the time to look. So as of right now, this is what we're dealing with in Texas. We got the nuclear training going on. We got cyber attacks out the wazoo. And it reaffirms, for me at least, my opinion that I believe that if anywhere is going to be targeted in America, I'm thinking Texas may be one of the number one targets. Let me know your thoughts, though, down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.